Hello once again, Allah Apah, dear Baha'i friends. Time is close to 2 o'clock. Today is 21st of April and Saturday today. Continuing to transliterate and explain this Mathnavi. In these 5 lines, not only Baha'u'llah talks about the same comparison between the two springs, but he has some explanations of the utterance and the speech and the talk and the wording of the revelation of God as opposed to the other writings. So in the very beginning it says, In Rabi'e Quds Janan Har Demi. In this, Rabi' is the equivalent of the word Bahar, which is Arabic. Rabi, Arabic for Bahar. Rabi'e. E means of. Quds means holy. Qudse. This E means of. Janan means beloved. Jan means soul. If you make it plural, you have to use H and A. Jan ha means the souls. But if you use A and N as Janan, it does not mean souls. Janan, when it's in the plural form, it means beloved. It really means John of John, means the essence of the essence, the soul of the soul, which is God. Har every demi moment. So this holy springs of beloved every moment. Sad bayan dawrad vali ku mahrami. Sad means 100. It's figurative, okay? It's not exactly 100. It's figurative, like we say 1,000. Sad bayan. Bayan is the name of the book of the Bab, bayan, but also it means utterance and explanations. Both. It means both. To explain something is to bayan something, or bayan means actual talk, utterance. So, sad bayan darad. Hundreds of utterance has. Vali means bat. B-U-T, bat. Ku, where is, who is. Ku means who. Who is mahram. Mahram means the person that could be trustworthy. A trustworthy person that you could talk to him and doesn't speak outside. That would be a mahram, who's keeping, the secret. The person you can trust. So, it says, there's holy springs of the beloved every moment has hundreds of utterances, but who is trustworthy? Means I would have said a lot of time. Every minute it is. But there's no person that is trustworthy. So Baha'u'llah also at Prevents speaks everything that he wants to. He doesn't. This tells us that there are more manifestations after him to come. Just like Jesus says, I cannot tell you everything. And then he explains, this talk and utterance is not literally by the words that I can explain the words. It's a very big matter right now. We'll explain it. In bayan bashad muqaddas as lesan. In is bayan utterance. Bashad is muqaddas sanctified. As of lesan tongue. This utterance is sanctified from the tongue, from the speech. K, when. Be, to. Ma'ni, significance. Ash, its significance. Resand, riches. This is no kasan. Kas means a person. Kasan means A and N at the end means persons. If you want to negate it, go exactly backward, then you use na in the beginning. Nakes. Nakes means you're not a person. literally. But naqis in the Persian means a person who is shyster, who is a liar. Okay? He's not a kas, he's a naqis. He's not the right person at all. Wrong person. Naqis. So this utterance is sanctified from the tongue. When to its meaning, when to its meaning reaches this shysters, this ignorance. So he says that this is not just a language I'm talking. There's a lot of difference between the Baha'u'llah's talk and ordinary talks. Bob has extensive explanations on this. That the word, he says, is like a body and it has a spirit. So imagine there are thousands and millions and billions of people on the planet. Apparently they're all people. But how different they are from one to another. One of them is Jesus Christ, Baha'u'llah, another one of them is me. So it's a lot of difference, a ton of difference. So Bob says the Word of God, although it apparently is the same thing, but it has a spirit in it. That is the reason why it is the Word of God. In one Mathnavi that I've written about Baha'u'llah, I have brought 4 stories to explain this to the style of Rumi. One of them was that I told you last time about this American listening to Abdul Baha speaking Persian, and he stops the translator and tells him that stop it, this is the divine revelation, I just want to hear him talk. And he tells him this is in Persian, you don't understand. He says, no, you don't understand. The truth is here. I don't need an explanation in the translator for the truth that I see. In another story I've written that the Word of God, my words and the Word of Baha'u'llah, brought a story of 2 sisters that are twin sisters, and one of them is in love with a man and a man is in love with her. And in the streets they dressed up the same. The guy sees the other sister and he thinks this is the right one. But as she starts to talk, he finds out this is not her, this is the sister. Trying to tell you that the person who is in love, he will know what's real, what's not real. But there's a difference between it. And in another stories that I have to explain the difference between the Word of God and our word is the story of a mother who leaves his son Jimmy, let's say, to be babysat by the grandparents. And after a couple hours, grandparents see the baby's not comfortable. Well, maybe 4 or 5 years, a child, toddler. They give him some food and he refused to eat. They say maybe, we should use somebody else. A priest was passing by and they asked him, maybe you can talk to him, to eat food. Food is good for him. Whatever language priest says, the child doesn't eat. They say maybe, we have to have a teacher. They had a teacher in the family. The teacher comes and explains to the child, in a very nice language. Child doesn't eat. They say he's sick. We have to take him to the doctor. They take Jimmy to the doctor. Doctor checks and everything. There's nothing wrong with him. They say, well, why is he not eating? He says, because you're not his mother. Meantime, the door opens. Big fat mother of Jamie comes in and says, Jimmy, eat. Okay, Mom. Starts to eat. Doctor says, see, there is a relationship between the sound that comes from the mother and this child. He receives and clicks into that sound and to that voice and eats. Word of God is like that. I explained. It's not just the appearance of the word. It's who is talking. God has a relationship with mankind. Based on that relationship, mankind feels this is his father, this is his mother, this is his begetter. This is the one he came from. He can't refuse. The honesty, the sincerity, whatever is in it is different from any other words. That is why mankind recognizes from very within. That I told you that in the beginning, few videos ago, that God has left a particular holy software, which is faith really, in very, very specific and general term, that respond to this voice. And he knows this is the true one. So that is why Baha'u'llah says, this is not just a tongue that you think you can go and copy my writing and try to say the same thing. It will have no effect. What is Bible? What Jesus says in the Bible maybe is 10 pages. Every one of them has been told by Plato, by Aristotle, by peoples in the past. Nobody listened to them to build any temple or change a slavery in the Rome. They couldn't do it. When Jesus says that, the whole Rome fall into it. And who is he? He's from Judea, one of the worst places. Same as today. Baha'u'llah comes from the worst place on the earth. From the lowest of the low of mankind in this particular stage are the Iranians right now. Because they have refused the biggest, the most vivid, visible things in front of them. Okay? To be blind at Pluto and Neptune is one thing, but to be blind in Mercury is one thing else, okay? These guys were too close to Baha'u'llah to deny. They had the access to the language. They couldn't see it, and they still don't see it. But lo and behold, people in Australia and Canada, United States, England, they all have intelligence, a spiritual intelligence. And like the stereotype that they think they don't, they do. Big time. They get it. A miracle they can perform that has never been done in the world of humanity. That Abdul-Baha, the founder of the religion, goes to the United States of America, and Anglo-Saxon did not kill him. They actually welcomed him. For the first time in the history of mankind, a prophet of God comes and he's been embraced personally. Quran says, "Oh, woe unto men, whenever a prophet came from amongst themselves, they denied him." Not Americans, not Anglo-Saxons race specifically. They didn't. That was a miracle done by Abdul-Baha and by the Anglo-Saxon race. They saw each other. They knew they belonged to each other. That's an amazing miracle. So, they were not speaking Persian or Arabic. They had a lame translator than Ahmad al-Sohrab or others. You know, there were no translator like Shoghi Effendi. But within those lame translation, they knew there's something out there. It's different. This is different. I can feel them. They got it. So, Baha'u'llah says, this is sanctified from this speech and tongue. Naqis means these are who are not a person. They of course don't get it. But American they did. Because they knew it. So, it says again, this utterance, speech is sanctified from tongue. When to its meaning wretched. This non-persons. These shysters, these oblivious. No. Then again goes back to explain the same thing about utterance. It says, in bayan as gufto lafzo sot neez. This utterance is not comes at the end. Persian verb comes at the end. This utterance is not of guft, speech, and laughs, word, accent, and sot, sound. Sound, word, and the accent. This is not out of those. He says. Don't look at it into the physical term, he says. That you think you can use that. Then he says, in bayan jaonasto. This utterance is the very spirit. It is the soul. And ura, u means the goes back it, the bayan. Maut, nist means is not maut. Maut means dead. This speech is the very soul, and it does not have a death. There's no death for it. It doesn't die. It's forever. So, let's speak a little bit about what Bob did. That is why the objection, a lot of objections at Bob that he has mutilated, they say, the Arabic language. He has used a way that nobody has before. Ironically, I have seen many places Shoei Effendi has done that too. He says, day a spring of knowledge. Most English people I ask them, they say they don't know what that means. Day a star of renunciation. So Shoei Effendi enters, a few idioms and words in the English language that apparently has not been there before, but it had to be invented. Now, when it comes to Bob had a lot of inventions on the words. But, ironically, he did it authentically, so that people do not object at him. Arabic language is very sophisticated when it comes to the construction of a word. Now, the grammar of Arabic is two. One is the construction of sentence, they call it nahv, and then there's the construction of a word, which is called sarf. Sarf allows us to build new words. For example, there's a pattern. I'll explain it to you, and I'll tell you what the objection is as Bob. For example, the word safa. Safa is S-F-A. That's an actual, without the vowels. I'm just talking about the consonant. S-F-A, safa. You could, based on the Arabic language, you could add an M with a sound of O in front of S, and you could add a T with a sound of A after the S to create the word Mustafa. So S has a Mo in front of it, becomes Mus, and a T-A at the end of it, after it, becomes Mustafa. F and A stays the same. So Safa, it can be turned into Mustafa. Jabba can turn into Mujtaba. Okay? So a lot of words with an M in the beginning and a T after the first word creates a different words. So, but there is restrictions because people would not go. They did not have the expertise, quite honestly, to create out of words in this pattern with a new meaning. So Bob takes the word Baha, just like Safa, S-F-A, Baha has B-H-A. He just adds the same system. M and O in front of the B becomes Mob, and T after the A, T and A after the B becomes Mubtaha. So from Baha, it creates Mubtaha, just as it was created from Safa, Mustafa. Mustafa means chosen one, is one of the titles of Prophet of Islam. Mustafa. They call him Muhammad Mustafa. Muhammad the Mustafa, the chosen one. So Bob takes Baha and he turns it into Mubtaha. They complain. They say, what is this? We never have the word Mubtaha in any dictionary. Too bad. The Lord of the utterances, the Bob, he has come and created this word with a beautiful meaning. Mustafa means chosen one. Mubtaha literally means a Baha'i. The person that Baha has affected him. He has become Mubtaha. If you go to Baha, you become Mubtaha. You see? So, and then they object. This is why Bob says this is not just a speech, and the accent and the sound. This has a soul in it, and it doesn't have that. So they're objecting at Bob. I wish after this, if God gives me time, I haven't seen any enthusiasm from you guys, or the speed of my enthusiasm is going too fast. You can't catch up with me. I hope before I die you can get me, receive some invitation from the people in Australia, go to see some of these Aussies. So I think I will explain the Bab's revelations, which is way, way, way more difficult than the Baha'i faith, way, way more difficult than any other revelations. Bab revelations is for the elite and for those who have pure heart. They don't need words, they just get into it. Or they have to be serious elite to understand what he says. If Baha'i faith is like a TV on and you're watching it, the revelation of the Bab is what's behind the TV. He gets into the detail of a stuff that's huge challenge for any scholar to understand and fathom this. I have tried 10, 15 years working at it. Few things I have understood. I have understood why it is so difficult. Because Bab's plan was just like a magnet to create only certain individuals that are worthy of this revelation, that they in return come and help Baha'u'llah and they do not object at him. So we're going to the third line. He goes back again to the spring and try to explain these springs. He says, عاشقان بینی تو اندر این بهار جان نثار آورده هر دم 100,000. عاشقان بینی, lovers. عاشق means lover. عاشقان means lovers. You see. You too, you see. In these springs, lovers you see. In this Bahar spring, Jan Nisar avarde. Jan means the soul, Nisar, sacrifice. Avarde, they bring sacrifice, the soul, har, every damn moment, 100,000, 100,000. He says the hundreds of thousands of souls they bring for a sacrifice in every moment. Wow! Have we not seen this in the history of the Baha'i faith at the time of Bab? So many amazing. 20,000 people died. Maybe we have barely a couple thousands of the history of the people and how they died. A lot more. It's hidden. But by all the accounts, so many people, they died. He says this brings the spirit of the sacrifice. Then he finalizes it. He says, in Baha'u'llah Ruhani Bovad. This is the glorious spiritual spring. This in Bahar spring is glorious. Ruhani, spiritual is. This is the glorious spiritual spring. In Rabi Quds Rabbani Bovad. In this, Rabi means Bahar in Arabic. Quds means holy. Rabbani is the last name of Shoghi Effendi, which means educational, divine education. When we say God is Rab, means divine educator. Rabbani means divine educations. Okay. So this spring, he says, is the holy divine educator. It will educate you. So the spiritual education, when the word Rabbani comes, let me explain a little bit on that too. The book of God and the revelation of God is not educator as such to tell you something you don't know. Does not claim to be a philosophy. Why would God kill so many people for a new philosophy? You know, something that we could do it anyways. Or for science. We've done marvelous in science. Or poetry. There's so many Shakespeares in the world. You know, social reform, no. None of it is there. This education of God is not educating you, but feeding you. It's like a 10-year-old child comes, Daddy, how was I born? Can you tell him exactly? You and mom getting together and say exactly how the process took place. If you show that to the child, even in Canada, you will get arrested. They say this child cannot understand this. You overwhelm the child. So, in this example, just an example, God will not answer you when you say that. He says, come on, Abbas, eat some more food. You tell him God, he says, eat food. Eat. Why? Because he wants you to grow. He's feeding you. Because once you grow, you got the answer yourself. So the rules and the laws and everything that Baha'u'llah is doing is not bringing something new. He's reminding you. This is why when we hear say, it's like we knew it. We know it. It's in ourselves. The fate of God, as I told you that in a few videos before, it is embedded in us. As a specific, private fate, this is the general fate of God. It's coming to create a connection between all of these private fates to create a general fate. So we know each other's. It's for protection of that feeling. This is why revelation of God, when it comes, most people, they know it already. In their conscience, they know this is the right thing. God confirms it. Tells them, yes, I know you know, but that is my word as well. That is why people go to it. It's confirming what is within us. God is feeding, he's not educating. Baha'u'llah is not a scientist, he's not a philosopher, he's not a poet, he's none of that. He's a feeder. You know. I read his writing. This Mathnavi, I must have read it a lot of time. It was probably 2-3 months after I started to write my own Mathnavi. Just osmosis pressure from him went into me, just like a child that as a baby sits with people, automatically starts to pick the language and speak. I picked up the language Baha'u'llah is speaking, and I wrote Mathnavi. I was only, 18 years old. Just got registered, I believe, with the Spiritual Assembly of in Iran. Actually, I wasn't yet, because I remember on that spiritual assembly that I went to register myself as a Baha'i, I had these writings with me to give it to them, and they were checking to see if I'm 18 years old, because I could not get registered otherwise. So this is what God does. When you get into it, all of a sudden you get kind of become a part of it. You know, you get recruited. He will use you to speak. Bob says, and Baha'u'llah is quoting that in a book called Baha'i. Quoting from Bob, he says, if there is an ear that can hear the word of God, God shall not hesitate for a second of a second of a second, but he will make that person to hear his word. So the word of God is in the air. Messages are out there. We have to hear it. Right now, lots of messages in the universe. Electronic base cannot get it. It's too slow. It has to be quark-based technology. Then they will hear the messages. Lots of it in the universe. Quark-based, not electron-based. If it is a spiritual base, which is very, very fine, you hear God every day. I guarantee you. I'll take every one of you, especially the worst one, according to society, like totally dropped out junkies. I'll take you to God. I make you to see Baha'u'llah and speak to him. Write to me, send me an email, I'll take you there. I guarantee it. God is very real, very literal. He's waiting. She got this whale in front of you. Okay, enough said. See you later.